Hello, everyone that's watching. My name is Mia Ricci. I am here on a new feature for C4DISC. That's the Coalition for Diversity and Inclusion in Scholarly Communications. As part of the coalition celebration of the Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, today we are sitting with a special guest who will talk to us a little bit about herself. So I'm just going to go straight to you, Gita, and ask you to introduce yourself and what you do.
Hi, Mia. Thank you so much for asking me to chat with you today. My name is Gita Manaktala. I'm the editorial director at the MIT Press. As the head of acquisitions in the books division, I work with all of our editors across many subject areas, and I also acquire books myself in a couple of areas. And I've worked in publishing my whole career. So happy to meet you.
So nice to meet you. Thank you for sitting down with us. And I forgot to mention that in the beginning of this, this feature is Gita's actually the first of a group of people, API colleagues that we are celebrating this month as a way to kind of spotlight more diversity in our industry and all the good work that's being done around that. Thank you for introducing yourself. So I would love to know what brought you to the scholarly communications or publishing industry, and what do you love most about your job?
Well, as I mentioned, I've worked in publishing my entire career at the MIT Press for most of that. So that's over 30 years now. And what really brought me to publishing, like so many other people, is just a love of books and ideas, a love of good writing, and a passion for reading. And what's really kept me in it is the very challenging and overstimulating nature of the work itself. That's very book focused. It's getting to work with all of these fantastic authors who themselves are really brilliant researchers and scholars, people who are creating knowledge, and then also working with great colleagues in publishing who are really smart and professional and kind and welcoming. So it's been an education and a wonderful experience for me to be part of this community.
Great, thank you. I feel the same way. I think it's crazy that, at my job as a publisher, I'm in constant communications with all these brilliant people working to disseminate knowledge and basically making the world a better place. So that's a pretty good thing, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the next question. So what do you hope to see? You've been in the industry for a little while now, for a few decades, and in the context of Asian and Pacific Islander colleagues in this community, in the industry, what do you hope to see for our community working in this scholarly communications? You could talk about some of the DEI activities or initiatives that you've been involved. I know that you've done some of that. So yeah.
Sure, yeah. I mean, well, I think we know and we probably agree that scholarly communications needs a lot more people of color, both as, as workers in our industry, staff members, editors, marketers, designers, etc., and also as authors, people that we publish. So there's underrepresentation of Asian Americans and also Black people, Latinx people, Indigenous folks, disabled folks, people of diverse genders, and women in the industry overall, on the author and publication side, and also on the staff side. So I have been involved with some DEI initiatives and have learned a lot doing this. One of the most impactful ones perhaps has been the Mellon-funded University Press Diversity Fellowship Program, which is has been a great experience for me personally, and I think for many people who've been involved with it. And that's a pipeline program whose purpose is to get around some of the structural barriers to entering the book publishing industry on the acquisition side in particular. I think that editorial departments are probably the most homogenous of any department in scholarly publishing and in publishing generally. They're most editors are white. So in an effort to begin to change that, even in a small way, the Mellon Fellowship is designed to offer entry-level full-time work that's fully paid with benefits to people who wouldn't necessarily work as unpaid interns or low-paid interns, but who are bringing exceptional academic qualifications, and no previous publishing experience is necessary. So it's a competitive fellowship opportunity, and I think it's had a great track record so far in bringing people into the industry that we wouldn't have had a chance to work with otherwise, and who are bringing us a lot of brilliant knowledge and skills acquired through academic work and other life experiences.
That's amazing. That sounds amazing. I wish there was something like that. That was, or a lot of, kind of initiatives like that. When I was first starting out, I started in the industry maybe about 15 years ago. And, I think that just the entry barrier is definitely there, and internships in scholarly publishings and in editorial at the time when I was started, a lot of them were unpaid. And it was, it was real difficult. So that's great. So thank you for sharing about that. Okay, so my next question is, as you know, May is the Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the US. C4DISC is not a US exclusive organization, so we're celebrating, API heritage around the world, but, I'm curious about what does your heritage mean to you?
Well, I'm Indian American. I was born in India, and my parents came over to the U.S. in the 1960s. They were part of a sort of first wave of Indian immigrants to the United States. There were restrictions before then, so it wasn't easy to emigrate from India, earlier in the 60s. So I grew up in the US, and I do feel part of this diaspora that's got its own history and unique set of experiences in the US. I have a lot of family in India. At the same time, I feel very closely allied to other Asian Americans and to other people of color in this country, because together we also share some experiences in common. So I think what's really interesting about immigrant communities and Black communities and people who are part of different diasporas in the US is that we have some shared experiences, but we also have these very distinct experiences that, get rolled up into these large categories like Asia, they're never broken out. So, I'd be very interested to hear your story too, Mia, about, where you grew up and what it was like. But books are the perfect place to tell some of these stories because they're complex and they're interesting and they're very distinct. I
love that. How you connect that, to your work right now with books. You're a communicator, and I feel the same way. I'm also an immigrant. I moved here by myself when I was 18. So I'm an immigrant, and now I have a family. I have a son, so he's first generation. But I agree with you that their experience, the immigrant experience, it's something that's obviously unique to everyone and every culture, but there's so many connecting threads that I feel very connected to other, not just Asians, or Pacific Islanders, but the immigrant experience. And in the US there's something that's, I think we share. But a lot of these stories, like you said, I think there needs to be more out there. So it brings joy to me to hear you, someone who works in publishing, kind of feeling the same way. So that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I have two more questions. This is supposed to be only 5 minutes. I think we're at 6, which is fine because I'm really enjoying myself. Okay, so as part of the celebration, can you share maybe a favorite Asian and Pacific Islander focus, or I don't know, star movie or books, and what you like about them?
Sure. Well, it's so hard to choose, my favorites, but I'll just tell you that The two books I read most recently are both by Ayad Akhtar. He's from a Pakistani American family, grew up in the Midwest in Wisconsin, I believe, and he's a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright. But he's also written these two absolutely brilliant novels. And the most recent one came out last year in 2020, and it's called Homeland Elegies. And I also read his previous novel, which is called American Dervish. And these two books are about negotiating race and identity and religion as a Muslim American in the United States pre and post 9/11. And I can't recommend them highly enough. They are shattering, they're beautifully written. And I listen to the audio versions, which are narrated by the author, who's, you know, he's an actor himself, so you can always tell which character is speaking because the voices that he narrates are so distinct, and they're probably the best audiobooks I've ever listened to. So
wow.
Yeah, just the narration's fabulous, the writing's fabulous, so I recommend them. Yeah,
that's amazing. That's really high praise, I think, for someone who's been working in the industry for 30 years. So I will make sure to check that out. I might get the name, and I'll have the I'll make sure to include the names of the books that you recommended on the C4DISC website when we post this video. So our last question is that, you know, as part of C4DISC, we also want to collect and promote, you know, organizations that champions diversity, inclusion, or any, you know, justice, social justice, or racial justice organizations to support. So do you have one that you want to particularly recommend?
Well, I support Black Lives Matter, and I also have been giving money to the American India Foundation because of the COVID crisis. They and several other organizations are doing really important work right now to try to get emergency supplies to India, and that includes, you know, respirators and oxygen, and also vaccines. Urgently in the crisis that's going on there with COVID right now. So
absolutely, yeah. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. Okay, I think that's all of it. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been really great talking to you. Yeah, so thanks, Gita.
Thank you so much, Mia. I really enjoyed it. Great meeting you.
It's so nice to meet you. I'm going to stop recording now.
Okay.